The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Time once again now for the UAB Director's Chair. He is the UAB Athletic Director, Mark Ingram. He joins us every single week right here to talk about UAB sports and college sports in general. Mark, how you doing, brother? Everything good? You're 1-0?
Outstanding, man.
I hear you. I really enjoyed the game last week. I'm looking forward to Georgia Southern this weekend. We'll talk a little about that coming up in a few seconds. You're hearing the show on the TKR app, available every single day, 11 o'clock, Monday through Friday. You can hear the UAB Director's Chair. And if you miss any of the shows, a lot of people, we get the majority of our listeners who podcast because they can't always listen to it live, and that's why we do that. Tony Kurre Radio Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, are available on every major indice. Let's talk about the game this past week. I guess what you kind of expected. UAB was a big favorite against the North Carolina A&T. Team looked fantastic. Of course, your quarterback play, only 3 incompletions, 13 different receivers catching the football, which is crazy, 7 different rushing backs, only 1 turnover. The penalties were down. I think Coach is probably happy with that, huh?
Yeah, I think for a game one, no matter who you're playing, you got to feel good about it. And remember, there's a number 1 team in the country and there's a number 135 at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. But every single one of them trains, practices, lifts weights. They all exercise and watch film and do everything they can to be better. But ultimately, not everybody can be number 1, and somebody has to be last. And I don't know where we or North Carolina A&T will be at the end of the season. My point is simply, it is a mistake by any fan at any school to discount the quality of any opponent because, again, everybody's trying and everybody's recruiting, right? And so the great thing about the game is you play against a team that doesn't know your line calls. They don't know what you're about to run. They, their defense, probably when you play against your own defense in practice, a lot of times what coaches are doing is they're telling everybody to stay off the ground, which means the defense can't go tackle somebody. So then it's like, well, did that running back in practice, it looks like he scored a touchdown, but would he have scored a touchdown or would the defensive tackle him to the ground? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. And so you're unsure a little bit going into game one, like, hey, is our defense really that good or is our defense really that bad? I don't know which one of the two. And so then when you start playing somebody else, both sides of the ball, you get a real feel for, okay, here's where I think we're good and here's where we have areas of improvement. And so that's the beauty of every game. But that first game in particular, when you've got a whole new staff and so many new players, I think that was super valuable. And Jacob Zeno, here's a guy that's been a bit of a career backup to this point in college. And he goes 38 of 41. And look, man, I don't care if you're throwing against air. It's hard to go 38 of 41 because remember, somebody's got to catch that ball too. Mm-hmm. That's not all on Jacob. Those receivers, as you pointed out, they got to catch the ball too. So, have to, and got to protect. And a lot of those were short passes. Again, you got to throw and catch it. Yeah. So, and there's a defense there trying to tackle you and knock it away. And so I applaud him and all the players and the staff for being able to do that. Our previous, it set the record for most completions by a UAB quarterback in a single game. John, I'm pretty sure, had the record prior to that. And John had that since the early 90s now. So that record has been there for, no kidding, like 30 years almost. And I think John's record was 29. So to go from 29 to 38 is a big jump. I mean, so it's a bold statement and really happy for Jacob, who's a terrific young man. And we expect big things out of him.
Yeah, and I think we saw a lot of that in some of the games last year when he came in, not only to clean up, certainly when you got your quarterback banged up, but just to see him get after a little bit. I was pleasantly surprised to see that he actually put the ball up 41 times in that game because it didn't seem like he did. And it was one of those games where it didn't feel like a blowout, but when you look on the paper, you're like, wow, that was a great game. And by the way, I do want to thank Trent Dilfer for scoring that late touchdown, just in case for entertainment purposes only you had UAB minus the line because they would have backdoored it. And that was quite thrilling for a lot of people, including myself, who was sitting in the stands. He's UAB Athletic Director Mark Ingram. I'm Tony Kurre. This is the UAB Director's Chair. Outside that game, anything in particular just in the wild world of college football that kind of struck you? Certainly the Deion Sanders situation was just miraculous and wonderful to see him knock off TCU, a team to play for a national championship last year. But anything else in particular that kind of tweaked your interest a little bit after week one?
Well, you mentioned Colorado, and I know that Deion Sanders has been given, criticized for maybe how he handled the team he adopted when he went to Colorado, and being very open with them about how he was bringing in transfers and getting better and all that. And listen, people may not like the words said, or maybe they don't like the way it's said. And I can appreciate that. But at the same time, he's going to be judged on winning and losing more than any coach has ever been. Coaches in the modern era, coaches are more critically judged than they ever were. And it's based on social media and the ability to communicate worldwide about your feelings about particular play calls or personnel or whatever, style of play, you name it. And people can fuss and complain about it in a major way. And so he knows that when we all used to say, well, you got to give this coach time, that used to mean 3 or 4 years to recruit.
Yeah.
Now, giving a coach time means he needs time to get in there and get his desk set up. And now we expect a national title, and that's the way people think. It's maddening. And so I won't disagree with people that are upset about how he handled that team. And I also won't disagree with how he handled that team, because it is a problem we've allowed to be created by a vocal group of former athletes that have created this system that is the transfer portal and being able to play immediately and now be paid to do so. And now layer in, people trying to create a bit of a unionization of these players. And it's a constant continuation of just finding a way to entitle young people. I have children. I have college age children, and I am constantly, and I have great kids, but they have constantly got to be reminded like where their role is.
Yep.
And they've got to be put in their box, like understand what authority is, and using your voice doesn't mean being radical. It means communicate appropriately and respectfully. That not picket signs and Twitter. That's not it, man. That's not how professional people act professional.
No, I think just to back up a little bit, I think Sonny Dykes did a wonderful job after the game, giving credit where credit was due. I do wish that Deion Sanders was a little bit more filled with humility and humbleness after that game, calling out reporters and saying, "Do you believe now it is only one game, and we'll see what they do against Nebraska this weekend."
I get you, but I don't
expect
power of the transfers gives him the ability to completely flip that team, and he did. And obviously they're going to be more competitive than they have been in a long time. I guess. Yeah,
but I didn't expect anything less from him. He's Deion Sanders. I mean, the guy's the only player ever to play in a Super Bowl and a World Series. So I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. But I am going to be excited to be watching that Nebraska, and he has made Colorado football a team that won one game last year. Kind of must see football, which is exactly what he's trying to do at that level. So very interesting.
But all right, you said, what do you expect? He's Deion Sanders. That's like, what did you expect when Roseanne Barr sang the national anthem?
Exactly. Something I do expect this weekend is a great game against Georgia Southern. Of course, they look really good in their first game, knocking off the Citadel, pitching the shutout, 400-plus yards of offense. UAB actually going into this game as a slight underdog, about 6.5, 7 points. But you got any thoughts on that game this weekend?
Well, yeah, they're explosive. And you remember they beat Nebraska last year at Nebraska.
Yep.
We were fortunate enough to get a win here against them the following week, which was a great win for our program. Their coach, Clay Helton, remember, was at Southern Cal. He's got a lot of experience. He has a staff with a lot of experience. They're well coached. They've got really good players, and it's at their place. So this is a hard game for us on the road. That I look forward to, going down there and giving them all we got and hopefully coming away with a win. But that will not be an easy task.
We had an email, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. We will read those. Something about the Knight Commission here, a public think tank for college athletics that often pushes reform but doesn't have the authority to enforce it. Released financial projections through the fiscal year just yesterday. We're recording this show here on September 7th. That includes more than $1 billion of revenue from an expanded 12-team college football playoff, which means next season more lucrative conference media rights agreements. It's based on a report dated from a Clifton Larson Allen LLP group. The 40-page report highlighted a crossover point when the compensation for 11 countable football coaches per school exceed the total money spent on tuition fees, housing, food, books, cost of attendance stipends, medical expenses, and insurance coverage. Amy Perko, who's the CEO of the Knight Commission, told ESPN the report should make it very clear to university presidents they need to direct their commissioners and athletic directors to develop a more comprehensive plan on athletic spending. I can imagine your eyes are probably hurting because they're rolling around so much in your head as you hear me read this. But as soon as I saw a story with athletic directors in it, I had to ask you the question per our email here, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. What's your thoughts on this report?
Well, we could talk about this for 3 hours probably. And this is a deep question. And respectfully, I appreciate the work of the Knight Commission, and a lot of times, whether it's them or other people who may make great points about the enterprise of college athletics, it's a matter of what's realistic, and so you have to put yourself in the chair of a president or athletic director, and your head coach from any sport just won the national championship, or make that sport football or men's basketball, or baseball or women's basketball, make it one of those sports. And you get pressure to make them the highest paid coach in the country, or hey, maybe they shouldn't be the highest paid, but they need to be in that conversation, whatever. And you're trying desperately. It's not just about football fans. It's every single person that is an alumni or sidewalk fan of that university who may contribute to the library, or maybe they have a business relationship with the university, and having won that title makes them proud of that business relationship. Or maybe as a result of that championship, they would now want to send their child to that university, which ultimately is revenue to the university. There's so many layers to peel back the onion, how sports impacts the institution and the community. And so the weight of the president's decision is they've got business owners in town whose business thrives on a football weekend, but it only does so when the football weekend is to watch a team that is successful. So now you have this coach. We're talking football, but this could be true for, again, a number of sports. So you have this coach that's won a championship, or sort of, maybe not even that. Let's take away the extreme example, but they're back in like championship contention, conference championship contention, after not being successful for a long, long time. And you're the AD and the president, and you're trying to preserve that, not just for the whole university, but the entire community that you live in. Yeah. And so you're trying to now keep or retain that coach and make that coach know how much you care and love them. Oh, and their staff. Oh, and their support staff. Oh, and their budget, which they operate. It is a plus model. And it is for the greater good of the entire community, beyond just trying to line the pockets of a coach. What unfortunately gets happen is, again, I'll use entitled, this belief that you're just trying to line the pockets of a selfish, entitled coach. And what you're trying to do is preserve the health of this larger community, which, enrollment is impacted by this, and on and on. And it's a weighty decision. If you're only doing it, if you take reports like this and you're only basing it on business principles, the problem is we are governed by principles that are not business principles, which is how many sports must we have, and what the balance of those sports in terms of funding must be. And I'm all for. I want to be very clear. I'm very supportive of that, but it's not a business model. If it were a business model, you'd have one sport. you know. But it's so when people say, "Oh, well, look at how does the NFL and their profit sharing with their players or with their teams, and the players make all this money because of the revenue sharing and distribution amongst the league." Yeah, but ask me, how is the track team for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah.
Oh, they don't have one.
Yeah.
What's the golf team like at the Green Bay Packers? Oh, wait, they don't have one. That's right. They're one team. They're one sport, and they have 52 players, and so it's just a completely different model. And so you can compare certain things that pro sports does to try to say, hey, maybe we could do that and improve here. But there's other things, which again, I support in college sports, that benefits a lot more than one team. And you're taking, if you say, well, does the coach make more than the athletes? Sure, but the coach also can get fired tomorrow for not winning. And the coach has built a career, and now they're whatever age they are, the player's 18 years old and unproven, and they may become great, but they also become great because we provided this phenomenal facility and all these resources, nutritionists and meals and extra meals, and we've been able to retain these phenomenal coaches, which now that player who went from being a raw athletic shows promise athlete has developed under the tutelage of these phenomenal coaches that we paid and retained for their personal benefit, that they go on to the pro sports, whether it's football, baseball, whatever, basketball, they go on to play pro sports and are able to do so at an incredibly high level through a career based on the tutelage of our staff.
No, and I knew you'd have something to say about it, and I totally agree with you. Uber lost $9 billion last year, but it's not going away. And you mentioned right here on this show several weeks ago just about how many athletic departments in all of college sports actually make money. It's not about really making money; it really isn't.
Well, there might be 20.
Yeah,
there might be 20 that don't take institutional funding.
Yeah,
so we survive, all of us. It's not just teams in the MAC and the Sun Belt and the American and the Mountain West and CUSA. It's not just us getting institutional funding. There's institutional funding at 110 of these schools.
Yeah, no, I can totally get it. Hey, listen, I love college football and I love talking about college football, but I love me some college hoops too. I just saw that Andy Kennedy, by the way, and I want to mention this, and I'm saying this as a fan, Trent Dilfer and Andy Kennedy may be the two most well-spoken coaches I've ever had. I heard Trent Dilfer out of the game. We were pulling out of protective, and I'm sitting there listening to the post-game show with David Crane. He is one of the most well-spoken coaches I've ever heard. So kudos. Not only did he gets the victory, but he sounds really, really smart, like he really, really is. I mean, I've seen him on ESPN for a long period of time, but I hadn't seen him coach speak, and he's very well-spoken. So kudos for UAB and the hire there. We've got an exhibition game coming up here in just about 7 weeks, October 30th, down there at Bartow. Can't wait for that game. And of course, they kick off the regular season against Bradley, conference champion, on November 6th. But I saw the non-conference schedule, which is like Christmas Day for basketball fans around here. 5 conference champions, 3 conference tournament champions, 4 NCAA teams, 7 teams with 20-plus wins. And I mentioned this before we started the show. My Clemson kid who just started school a couple of weeks ago was very excited, but also distraught to see that UAB is going to be playing Clemson because he's a huge fan of both coming up here on November 10th. Can you just talk about the basketball program briefly? Then I got a classic rock question for you.
Well, yeah, Andy has done a fantastic job, and he and Trent are a ton of fun to work with. They're fun together. It's 2 big personalities. They play well off of one another. They're fun. They're funny. They're entertaining, engaging. Our fans, and they're not the only ones, but those are the 2 that get the most attention here at UAB. And so, number one, I agree with all that. And he has 9 new players and feels really good about them. Just like anything, getting them, figuring out the combination of who plays best together and when and who on the court at which time. And it's a chemistry that really mixes together properly over time. It's you have to age fine wine, and it's kind of like that. Chemistry of a team, any team, is improved over time. And, you and I are teammates, and me knowing that when I bring the ball up that you'll go to the rim. If I lob it up there, you have not only the instinct, but the ability to get to the rim and alley-oop dunk the ball. Like, there's just things that, I can just sort of look at you and a certain way and you know what I mean. And all I did was look at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that firsthand as a player. Peyton Manning did that with some of our receivers, and it didn't have anything to do with play calls. It didn't have anything to do with what was supposed to happen on the field. He would walk up to the line of scrimmage. He would see the defense. The receiver knew what he was looking at because of their time together in chemistry.
Yeah.
And he would just look at that receiver and he would kind of give a little head nod. And the receiver knew what that meant, which was, don't do what we called in the huddle. Do the other thing that we've worked on all year for the last years and years together, and boom, touchdown. And everybody in the stadium thought it was called, and all the coaches and everybody went, holy cow, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was chemistry.
Yeah.
And so, Andy, just like Trent, they're working through that chemistry. But Andy, who's pretty good at pointing out their flaws when they have them. I can tell he's excited about their talent level. And so now it's really just about getting it all together.
There you go. The UAB Director's Chair, you can hear it every Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time, right here on the TKR app. TKR, those 3 letters will get you classic rock to the bone. And, of course, all kinds of great unique shows, including Need to Know, Dark Side of the Pooch. We got a Led Zeppelin show we're starting in a couple of weeks. I know Mark's going to love that. Mission-minded students to the game. We got all those shows right here on the TKR app and wherever you get your podcast. We had quite the rough week when it came to loss of life in the world of rock and roll and music last week. Jimmy Buffett, Steve Harwell from Smash Mouth, the lead singer, dead the age in his 50s. And then Gary Wright out of the blue. They say they come in threes, passes away, our dream weaver. Would you like to expound on the loss of any of those lives, how they've affected your life?
Well, I could say good, really good things about all of them. I guess I've seen Jimmy Buffett live 5 times, and he's just fun. I never met him. I don't know anything about him. One of my teammates went to high school with one of his daughters. That's the closest I could say I ever got to Jimmy Buffett was his daughter Savannah through a friend. But his music is entertaining in a different way than anybody else. He's a storyteller. He started out sort of in the country music business, and he became this, but he had this quirky humor about him that it sort of blended away from country and into a genre that didn't exist. And it was this sort of island music that was sort of country, sort of pop, sort of I don't even know it, sort of reggae at times, and big band style at times with a huge orchestra behind him, and he disobeyed all the music, all the professionals in the music industry, record labels who said you've got to have music that's only the songs can't be longer than this, and it has to fit into this box. And he made a career out of touring.
Yep.
He didn't make a career out of the radio. You can't hear his music on the radio. Not really. Oh, you can hear Margaritaville, but that's about it. And the guy's got, 100 songs that most of his fans could sing word for word. And so it's totally against all the other theories of what would make a successful artist. I mean, he just tours and sells out everywhere. Yep. And I've seen him inside and I've seen him outside, and they're not the same. An outdoor show, it just feels like you're at the beach, and you can be anywhere, and so I hated seeing that. And I guess I don't know if the details have been released. I know he was, not a young man, but not an old man either, I don't think. And so
he was 76 and had a rare form of cancer, and he was sick the last 4 years, and no one knew about it. And I didn't know that had been released. So, he had a rare skin cancer. Yeah, that is really rare. And then, of course, and I know you'll appreciate the story because I know you have relatives and family up in Cincinnati. But I was working up at the Paramount Park there, Kings Island Amusement Park, when I was in 1985, and I was working in the money room. So I was called a robber, where I'd go around to different businesses and rob their registers and take the money back to the money room to count it so they wouldn't have so much cash on hand.
Yeah.
And the night that Jimmy Buffett played at Timberwolf Amphitheater, which is right there on the premise, that was my dig. And so my boss said, you got Timberwolf tonight. I said, okay. And I said, do I need to bring somebody with me? Because I couldn't be walking around with $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in cash.
Right.
And he said, no, it's just Jimmy Buffett tonight. No one's going to be there. I said, okay, that was in 1985. And I get there and there were 5,000 people in a 4,300 seat arena. It was overflowing. And I was like, what is going on? Jimmy walked on stage and looked both directions and said, is there another band playing tonight? And he was serious and everyone laughed. And he's like, no, seriously, am I the only band playing tonight? And for whatever reason, I don't know what happened, but everyone showed up to see Jimmy Buffett that night, 8 years after, of course, his biggest hit in Margaritaville. And that's what started the movement of Parrot Heads, period. And from that point on, Cincinnati was the only time where he played the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday shows where he did 5 shows in 1 week. He was doing that before Bruce Springsteen was selling at Madison Square Garden. Just amazing stuff. So
I was going to say so my wife is from Cincinnati, as you know, and has been to that show. It's pretty remarkable. And I can't remember off the top of my head what his he has a real I guess I should speak to that. He had a real affection for Cincinnati.
He sure did. It's because he got his start there. Or his second start. Yeah, because he remembers he remembers that night. Shows. Yeah, he remembers that night. I got a chance to meet him, and
then he moved that show down to the amphitheater,
Riverbend Music Center. Sure did.
And and that's a big venue, and to play that thing 5 times in a week and sell out 5 times is a feat.
And
man.
You didn't see 1 or 2 shows. If you went to one, you were at all 5. And I remember this, and you're going to love this. All 5 shows, $250. That was the ticket. You get tickets to all 5 shows for $250. But now it's probably $250 for a half hour.
Sad. Maybe we should all have a cheeseburger in paradise.
There you go. Well said, my friend.
And a margarita.
Hey, go get the upset win this weekend against Georgia Southern so we can talk next week and be 2-0. And basketball season right around the corner. I greatly appreciate you.
Thanks, pal. Appreciate you. Go Blazers.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.